विश्वं दर्पण दृश्यमान नगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्विभूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये सात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततन्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै। अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासूनगतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पंडिताः। So Bhagavan started the teaching. So because Bhagavan wants Arjuna to be out of sorrow for good. And so for knowing that relative shreyas, etc. was useless, because there are many ways of removing the sorrow and people are applying also. They are all called escapes. Many escapes. You can talk to a friend, you can play something, and then, or you can take a bath with something, singing something, and varieties of the escapes are there. It's very, very pathetic that the human being, really, a human being is the most evolved creature in the creation, and he wants to run away from himself. That's called escape. So, very pathetic. And the problem is not legitimate. If you go further, you feel it's really foolish. One's nature is such that one can remain comfortable without any cause. No cause can bring comfort. Without cause, you can remain comfortable because that's your nature. Nature doesn't require cause. Yesterday I told you also. And therefore, but not, and that too, if it is not experienced, then it's just a matter of imagination. That okay, someday I will become comfortable because Bhagavad Gita says so. But you have experienced, right? Everyone has an experience of a comfort. I mean, those moments of comfort which we call moments of joy, they are used to be there. And even in deep sleep state, etc. also, one remains comfortable. And therefore, Deep sleep state, huh? Not kind of a like dream, etc. But deep sleep state, definitely, when you get up, you definitely feel that it was a comfortable state. And so I'm in a comfortable state and joy, etc. goes together. So without any cause, you experience, right, to have a comfort. And therefore, so that indicates it must be my nature. Then there's a confusion regarding the self, may be the problem for this sorrow. And if the confusion is a cause of sorrow, it's not legitimate. If confusion can be a cause, then better resolve the confusion. Then there is no sorrow. And that's how Bhagavan, even while teaching to Arjuna, Arjuna is crying almost. And Bhagavan is laughing. Prahasanniva Bharata, in the 10th verse, Bhagavan is as though laughing. Because in Bhagavan's eyes, there is no problem. The whole thing he narrated, our hero, has narrated everything. Bhagavan thinks that there is nothing to be grieved for. There is no room for sorrow. There is no room for sorrow. And therefore he smiles as though not laughing. As though on the condition of Arjuna he is laughing as it's not like that. But he smiles. But still he comes down at the level of Arjuna. And that's the compassion. A teacher is required to have a great compassion. Even though in his eyes there is no legitimate sorrow, and therefore the problem itself is not legitimate, the solution, etc., also is equally not legitimate, but still there is a real problem. He accepts from the standpoint of a disciple and gives a solution also, which is legitimate at least for the shishya or the person who listens to the teaching. Anyway, and so the subject matter of the rest of the Gita is this only: resolve the confusion. Resolve the confusion, because two things have mixed up as though mixed up, and that is self, non-self, atma, anatma. And that if there is a confusion, the inquiry which can lead to the knowledge of the self will be a discriminative inquiry. And we have seen that there are two kinds of inquiries. One is an inquiry in which you don't know anything, and you start an inquiry. Well, there is no confusion regarding anything because you don't know at all. If you don't know, there is no confusion. If you know something little bit and in detail you don't know, there is a confusion. And that's how it is happening with regard to the self. And therefore, Bhagavan is, giving, the subject matter of the rest of the Bhagavad Gita is just a self-knowledge and the cause for the removal of the sorrow. And Shankaracharya's commentary also starts from that. And here Bhagavan says, Ashocyan anvashochastvam. Anvashochaha means you are grieving for something which doesn't deserve grief. And then afterwards we have seen also the three things which are called shocha, or the objects of grief. And those things, universal cause of a grief, or a cultural, maybe a cause, or it may be a personal cause. Well, and Bhagavan picked up the universal cause. There are because of three reasons. The first thing is the Arjuna's sorrow is based on the death of the people who are just on the opposite side, and including Bhishma and Drona especially. And that is imminent death. Actually, death has not occurred yet because the war itself has not started. But he imagined everything, imagined the war and the result of a war, everything. And then he definitely brings a sorrow. So imagined thing also could bring a sorrow. That proves that you just imagine. That's how we sometimes become sorrowful by imagination of future. Room is comfortable. I am talking about myself. Also, okay. If the room is very comfortable, outside there is a snow, everything, but in room there is zone, comfort zone is there, everything, there is so peace you wanted, peace is also there, and you wanted all the things which you, milk and this and that, and everything is there, but still you feel sorrowful. For what? Then nothing happened with anybody, but you become sorrowful, because you got a certain thought of a future, or sometime of the past, because it comes out of the memory. When person doesn't live in present, there is a vulnerability of becoming sorrowful, definitely. Either you go to the past, either you think of the future, and possibilities of the future can bring a sorrow, because the future, being future, it's very uncertain. very uncertain, and you have an experience that what you think of has never happened so. And therefore it may happen again that way only. What I think it should happen in a positive way, but perhaps it may happen in a negative way also, because in the past it has happened. And therefore, the possibility of the future can bring a sorrow, and past memory also can bring a sorrow. Not living in a present. And not living present is a confused self, because Atma is presence. Atma is a Sat Swarupaha. Atma is existence. And therefore, if it is a nature of existence, if you know its existence, you also live in existence. I mean in presence. And therefore, if one leads oneself to, one goes away from the presence, then definitely there is a confusion regarding the self. And therefore, anyway, and therefore here, Bhagavan picked up because Arjuna was grieving for the imminent death, and Bhagavan has taken as though a vow to remove the sorrow for good in these verses of the Bhagavad Gita. So that's the one reason. And second reason I told you is called, in Sanskritam it is called Pratham Malla Nyaya. Pratham Malla Nyaya means if you want to become a world champion, definitely you fight with the current world champion, and then you automatically get a title of a world champion. You need not have to fight everybody in the street. I mean, everywhere in the street. And so the three causes in which, of course, cultural reasons are there, and personal reasons are there for grief, etc. And something gets lost, and something comes, somebody comes, or then also we may feel sorrowful. Something is lost, we may become sorrowful. Including everything. It may be a wealth, it may be a person, it may be a memory, it may be a hair, it may be a teeth, anything. I mean, any loss could create a sorrow in a person. But definitely, these causes are like, fighting with the person, somebody in the street, and then you want to have a title of a world champion. Well, that's not going to work. Fight with the current world champion. So if you want to remove the sorrow, you fight for the universal cause, which is the cause for the grief, called death. And therefore, Bhagavan thought of discussing the death itself, going to analyze the death phenomena, etc., and the nature of Atma, etc., which is free from death. So that way, this is second point. And the third is definitely death is an only appropriate event that is used here in order to discuss about sorrow and its removal, etc. Because what you are going to discuss is about Atma. And Atma is free from death. And therefore, you should pick up the subject matter with the death itself. So these three reasons are there. And for that, Bhagavan has picked up the death and which has been indicated in the second line, Gatasun, Agatasun. Asun. And Asu means, that is the breath. Gata means the last breath. Because between every breath, there is a gap. So Lord Yama enters in the gap, basically. That's all. When Lord Yama enters in the gap, where there will be, you take a breath, but you cannot take it out. You breathe in, but you can't breathe out. That's all. Over. So Lord Yama enters where there is a gap. And if you, in Yoga Shastra, of course, it is very beautifully said. Anyway, we'll talk some other day. How this longevity and pranayama has a connection, very beautiful connection is there. Let's drop it for time being. So, anyway, Asu, Gata Asun. Bhagavan says death is there. But this is called death. What is called death? When the prana leaves, that's all. When prana departs. From whom? From Atma? No. From body. Well, what about Atma? You are not accounting for Atma at all. But Atma is something which is not to be accounted in the case of death. Atma has nothing to do with the death, much less to the birth. We are going to see in the next verse itself that there is no way we can prove the birth of Atma. Really. We are going to see that. No way one can prove a birth of Atma. And therefore, anyway, if birth itself is not there, death also will not be there. Which is born will die, definitely. And therefore, anyway. So, here, the thing is, the subject matter being Atma, which is free from death. Bhagavan wants to establish that. And Arjuna's sorrow mainly because of the confused self, confused Atma, in which the death of body is superimposes upon the Atma, which is really, in reality, is death-free. Well, what has a nature of an existence? If something has a nature called existence, means what? It will never happen as a non-existence. It cannot give up the nature. If to give up the nature means it becomes non-existent. Then if the non-existence, that is a death. Well, if it is an existence, but it exists forever. When the death can never come nearby. Death means non-existence. And well, that will not be the case. And therefore, the three reasons are there. That is why Bhagavan started with this. And Bhagavan could have used the verse in a different way. Mritasya, Jivitasya, etc. You can, here, in the verse, if you see, Gatasuna Gatasumsya. Instead of Bhagavan could have used Mritasya, Jivitasya, Nanu Shochanti Panditaha, Bhagavan could have said. For the people who are living or for people who are dead. Instead, you use Gatasun, whose pranas have gone. Purposely it is used by Bhagavan. He is a Sarvagnya. He knows very well what to use. So Asun means prana. So the prana viyoga and prana sanyoga, the connection with the prana to the body is a life. And the departure of the prana from the body is a death. Atma has no connection. And yesterday I gave you an example of a space in which the clouds, either they get connected, sanyoga, or clouds sometimes they go away from each other. Well, it's up to the clouds to come near or to go away. Sanyoga and viyoga, just at the level of a clouds. The akasha which pervades all the clouds has nothing to do with this sanyoga or viyoga. Has nothing to do with connection of the clouds or the separation of the clouds, right? And same way, Atma, which is all pervading, has nothing to do with, which accommodates everything, has nothing to do with something dead or something alive. It has nothing to do with the pranas which depart the body or pranas which enter the body. When prana enters, definitely everything enters, which of course is the part of the Tattvabodha, so I am not discussing. Because Jiva also enters, person says like that. Jiva departs and Jiva enters. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. But instead I am saying prana, because basically life-death is always expressed in vyavahara, in transaction with the prana. Right? So we always check whether the pride is there or not. So life and death is always in connection with that, and that's a wonderful way of looking at it. So Vedanta wants to convey this birth and death has no connection with the Atma. Atma is asanga. Name Janma, Name Mrityu Shanka, etc. Also, it comes in Nirvana Shatakam also. So it is for sure that it has nothing to do with Atma. Means Atma is free from birth and death. But death is a phenomena which is in time. Atma is timeless. The Sat of the Atma, the existence indicates it is timeless. If something is of nature of existence, well, it is timeless. Why? Because existent thing can become non-existent. Means the time it is under the time. It is time bound. It is time bound. Well, if something remains existence today, tomorrow, and in the past, in the future, all the time it is existence, well, then time is not going to affect it. So we call it as a timeless thing. And that timeless thing is called Sat or Satyam for Atma. That's the nature of Atma, which always exists. And therefore there is no question of grief as such. If time is not going to affect, if there is no birth and death, well, why we are grieving for? That's a reason. So there is no legitimate reason for grief to be there. And that's what Bhagavan is going to say even later by revealing the nature of the self. And then we said our source of, I'm just revising what has gone by yesterday. And the source of sorrow could be only two. If you divide the world into two, one is the self, another is non-self. Aham and idam. Aham is the I, and idam is this. So I and this, that's all the world is. I and this. And if there is a sorrow, then one of them is responsible. One of them. So we analyzed also that the self is not self is not a source of a sorrow. Yeah. So source of sorrow we are searching for, because there is experience of sorrow, and therefore we cannot deny the sorrow. So it is not proper to be said, because Bhagavad Gita says so. Why? This is not the way to say. This is not the way to say. That it is not proper. If somebody is grieving, this person advises, hey, you are attending Bhagavad Gita classes and why you are grieving? This is not the way to say. The person should discover that there is no reason for sorrow. That's the answer. Not that there is not, somebody is grieving and you advise. It's not a question of advice. People generally advise. You should not be sorrowful. These things have happened. We are also going to die one day. Why you are grieving for and all that? It's not going to work that way. In fact, it creates prejudice for Bhagavad Gita and for acharyas and everybody. So, basically, the source of sorrow could be a Atma, or source of sorrow could be Anatma. Source of sorrow could be the I, and either the source of sorrow could be this. And nothing is a source of sorrow. I is not a source of sorrow. If I is a source of sorrow, I by nature is sorrow. If fire is a source of the heat, then definitely heat is the nature of fire. That's how we always go. Whenever we want a heat, we go to the source, and the source is fire. And therefore, the source means it is a nature of that. So if sorrow is a nature of Atma, and thereby it becomes a source, then Atma is all the time sad. Atma is all the time sad, and if it is its nature, then one will be happy with that. One will be happy with this kind of a sadness because it's nature. And if Anatma is a source of sorrow, and also we have said that if sorrow is my nature, or our Atma's nature, we have no cause for sorrow at all. We are trying to search the cause for sorrow as such, and what is the cause of sorrow. And therefore, if it is a nature, there will not be a cause. For anything, if there is a nature of that thing, you won't find a cause. Whatever you try, you won't get. That's how it is. Sugar is sweet. What's the cause? What's the cause? Sugar is sweet. Right? Fire is hot. What's the name? Or the water is cold. What's the cause? What's the cause? There is no cause. So the same way, if sorrow is my nature, definitely we have no cause for sorrow at all. We always have a cause of sorrow. That's what the complaint is. You say, I'm sorrowful because this. Right? So definitely the sorrow is something which has arrived. Right? Sorrow is something which has arrived, and now I am in a process of finding the cause of it. From where it arrived, why it arrived, etc. At this time why it arrived, etc. So it arrives, it goes also, right? It leaves you and goes also. What arrives and goes will not be your nature. That's another way of looking at it. It will come. So what arrives and goes, either by escape or anything, what arrives and goes is not your nature. If something can leave you, you are there, but that thing which leaves you, keeping you as it is, then it was not my nature. Definitely not my nature. Like, the clothes, etc. Definitely we put on every morning, and we remove also. That's Bhagavan was going to give the reason also. And you change also. Then it's not your nature. So you never say, I'm a shirt, or that's how, I'm a shirt, or I'm the scarf. Nobody says that kind of a thing. No one does this kind of mistake. If somebody does, then it is self-confusion. So, same way, this is sorrow also is my own nature. We have no cause for the sorrow. At least we will be happy with the sorrow. Then, in that case, we will be happy with the sorrow being our nature. So, then sadness will not be a problem. But sadness is a problem. Therefore, because there is a cause, and therefore it is not my nature. So, between two things, I and non-I, Atma, Anatma, Aham and Idam, I and this, I is not a source of sorrow. Well, then the only thing left over is this. This could be the source of sorrow. Yes, Swamiji. For my complaints and for my sorrow, I find all the reasons other than myself. Right? Everyone has a list of complaints. And in which for this person did this person did this situation did this, etc. Even God also comes in the category. Yeah, God also is bechara, unnecessary. He gets punishment from us. And so this could be a source of sorrow. Well, this could be a source of sorrow, means the sorrow is the nature of this, the world. We have never found. We have found in objective world, inertness is the nature of the world. We have not found sorrowness in the nature of the world. Much less happiness. Much less happiness. Either happiness, either sorrowness. That kind of a word is there or not. I'm just using that kind of. That so shows abstract now. The ness indicates a state of the particular object. Anyway, so basically this, so either a sorrowness or happiness is not a nature of a world also. If you brand something as a sorrowful, a source of sorrow, let's say, not sorrowness, source of sorrow, something you brand as a source of happiness, well, it's your world. It's your world. It's your fancy, nothing more than that. Because the same object which you call is a source of happiness, if for others, at the same time, at the same place, the same thing will be a source of unhappiness also. So going to the beach on the sea and all that are so beautiful, all coconut trees. But person may go to a beach and he becomes sorrowful because it reminds of his past life or something, Past life, years in which he might have come with his wife or something and wife is no more. Anything could happen. So going to the beach is a source of joy, you cannot tell. Or going to the beach is a source of sorrow also, you cannot tell. So on the beach there are many people sitting, and you will find some people they are like philosophers, they sit. And they look upon the sky and the face also is so serious. So serious. So coming to this place, a lot of memory comes in. And therefore this world basically also cannot be branded as a source of sorrow. Well, then still the sorrow is there. Then the only possibility is when both mix up, which is not a possibility at all. It cannot be mixed up because both have the opposite nature. One is a conscious, Atma is a consciousness, and this world, Anatma, is inert. A consciousness and inerty cannot mix up. To mix up also, there should be a compatibility of the nature. That's how mixing takes place. So there is no mixing. Like Bhashyakara tells in Brahmasutra Bhashyam that tamah prakashavad viruddha svabhavayoho. Tamah prakashavad. One is of the nature of a tamaha, means a darkness. Other is a prakasha, means other is a nature of light. And you want to combine the darkness and the light. Cannot be possible. Same way, one is inert, one is conscious. Altogether different nature. One shines on account of a conscious being, consciousness shines on account of itself. One is having existence from this conscious being, other is having existence on its own. So one has a borrowed existence and one has a independent existence. One has a borrowed illumination, other has a self-illumination, and therefore, and one is all pervading. The other is all limited. The world is limited in terms of time, space, and everything. So it is just opposite. And therefore it cannot be mixed up. The opposite natured things, objects, cannot be mixed up. So Atma and Anatma got mixed up, and then that arises. The sorrow has arisen. Because that's the only possibility now we have. But it cannot mix up. But then I find it is mixed up. So it's an error. It's an error in our mind. Actually, they are not mixed up. Such a phenomena has not occurred. But in my mind, I think both are together. Like if you see a sunrise and it's a confusion. Sunrise is a confusion. Sunset is a confusion. fireball is a confusion, definitely confusion. But you consider it as a really a third entity, really, well, then you have to do discrimination here. That's how it is. So sunrise also, if you want to remove the confusion regarding sunrise, definitely go through the science and resolve the confusion. Same way here also, go through the Vedanta and resolve the confusion that there is no called mixing of Atma and Anatma. Basically, it is not possible, that kind of entity is not there. But I definitely feel that it is there, because I say I am a human being. When you say I am a human being, I is just a consciousness, and human being means this body. I mean, you have mixed together. You have put in one locus. So it is born of confusion or error only. Actually, the body and consciousness, or inert thing and conscious thing, Atma, has not really mixed up. Well, it will come, but this is how this Pandita resolves this confusion. By getting this Atma Anatma Viveka, discriminative inquiry, what is Atma, what is Anatma, they do. And in that, they don't do that inquiry for both. One, you inquire regarding Atma, automatically you will know what is Anatma also. Or you try to know what is Anatma, and then you definitely automatically will know what is Atma. If you know Atma as it is, definitely you will know Anatma also, whatever may be the nature of that Anatma also you will come to know. And therefore, one of the things is enough to know. And Arjuna's sorrow is definitely not knowing the difference between the two, is that Atma and Anatma, and that confusion has arisen in his mind, and that is why Bhagavan is giving this Atma Anatma Viveka Jnanam, knowledge pertaining to the nature of self or non-self. So in short, they call Atma Jnanam, but it automatically implies Anatma Jnanam also. I mean, you know Anatma also, what may be the nature of it. What is the nature of it? It also will come to know. And then Gita Shastra is just this, a connection between this subject matter, Atma and Atma Viveka, and the result. What will be the result? And the person who gains the result, also the description of the person, like Sthita Prajna, etc. A wise person, how he is, what is the state of his mind, etc. Outwardly he is the same. He is a human being, he nothing, no outward change. No, I mean, nothing grows. Puja Swami used to tell that, the horns will not grow on his head because being a wise person. So, but outwardly saying, his even gestures, his way of eating, everything, way of talking, everything remains same. He doesn't start immediately speaking in Spanish or speaking in Sanskrit or something. Nothing is going to happen. That's what Bhagavan wants to discuss, also in the second chapter at the end. So, wise person who knows this, having after inquiry of discriminative inquiry between Atma and Anatma, get the wisdom and what are the characteristics, especially in terms of his psychological aspects. And definitely here, this in terms of a dialogue. Everything, all the teaching pertaining to self-knowledge is in terms of dialogue between a teacher and a student. And both should be qualified. Teacher also should have a certain qualifications that Bhagavan talks in the 4th chapter also. And what kind of a qualification a person who wants to know should have, and that we are seeing in the morning, sadhan chatushtayam, etc., etc. Now we'll see the pragmatic view of this verse. I mean, suppose somebody is not in contact with this scripture, or is not interested somehow. He is not interested in Bhagavad Gita, in the verses, or in the Veda also as such, which gives self-knowledge and which removes the sorrow. He independently says this sorrow does not find any legitimacy. He says that. And he what is that person's view, pragmatic person's or practical person's view regarding the sorrow? Means why the sorrow is not legitimate, why one should not have a sorrow, etc. For that we will be just looking into. That's very good also. It will serve as a cushion for us, because till we get an abidance into the knowledge, or we get a clarity. I would say abidance also may sometime get a clarity in the knowing the nature of the self, because the clarity grows slowly. If more and more you get exposed to this teaching, more the clarity goes regarding the self. And therefore, if that clarity comes little later because of the qualifications, maybe less, etc., then nothing to worry at all. Meanwhile, this practical person's view gives us, practical person's view is going to give us a little cushion to remain, to keep away the sorrow. So the first thing is, and I mean the legitimate sorrow is a sorrow which produces certain result, what you want. That's, then you consider as a legitimate. Because it is giving you, by having a sorrow, it is giving you something which is beneficial to you. Then keep it. Then please keep it. But it doesn't give any kind of a benefit to the person. That's what has been described. So when a person is sad because somebody has very near and dear has just passed away, then let's think that way. What does the sadness produce? Like suppose my dear friend, suppose he has just passed away. Then what this sadness which has arisen in me, what will it produce? It doesn't produce anything, really speaking. Because a person has gone. He is not going to come back because the Swami is sorrowful now. So Bhagavan says, no. Then because no, since he is very much sorrowful, okay. So you go back. It is not going to happen. One is gone, is gone. The sorrow cannot produce. What kind of a result? A favorable result. What result? The person will come back. No. And then what in terms of your daily activity and everything? It will be there. Like Swamiji always used to say about that, a Swami is crying, let's say. That's better. A Swami is crying because he is gone. Friend has gone. Then crying, I will get up in the morning and I will, light up the stove. Crying, I will put water for boiling. Crying, I will add sugar. Crying, I will add morning, 4 o'clock. I still crying, of course. Definitely. When I went to bed, crying. Morning, I got up, definitely crying. And therefore, crying, I got up. Crying, I switch on the stove and water I put. And then crying also, I put all these things, stuff for what are the materials for tea. And crying, I drink. Crying, I do the cleaning of the vessels and everything. Crying, I wash the hands also several times because this corona. And therefore, somebody told me, count 20s. 20 counts you should, till then you should, wash. You should put some soap and then take little water and count 20. Till then you keep doing this. And then wash. So crying, everything is crying. Nothing changes. Earlier when the friend was there, the same way without crying I was making. Now with crying. And 11 o'clock with crying I will put khichdi because nothing else, in India. This is one thing to know. When somebody dies, but then people will come, at least family, relatives, from the near and dear, people they come all assembled and they live together for 12 days till everything will be over. All the religious rituals, etc. will go. They all live together. So the people in the home, especially the person who has gone, the very close relatives, they will not be alone. So other people also will come and and they share a lot of memories and all that, and thereby psychologically the lot of that pain inside of losing the person will slowly go. And then very first day, now if he was cremated, he was put to the fire and everything, and now all the people, especially males, only males go in India. Then they can go there and they have returned. And they took bath and everything. Now what? Crying is on. That's okay. Crying is on. But then everyone is hungry. So then crying they will make khichdi. Crying they will make vegetable. Crying they will eat together. Crying they will do dishes. Everything. Crying. And crying they sleep. And after a few days you feel crying has gone. Crying is gone. Some more days, then seriousness gone. And 1 or 2 years, totally forgotten. Totally forgotten. Is it happening or not? So what sorrow has produced? Like even in 12 days, what sorrow has produced? Nothing. Nothing has produced. If something it has given you in terms of in terms of your benefit, some benefit, at least situation become favorable by your sorrow. Then also let's do nothing. And therefore, no fact is altered before the person dies or after the person is gone. He becomes sorrowful. The fact remains fact. Nothing is changed. And therefore, the pragmatic person's view, the person who is, let's say, atheist. There are people atheists, but they are very practical people. I might have seen, and you might have also met people, that they take the situation as it is. Even the situation, we feel that, even with the teaching, we feel, no, this situation is unbearable. I mean, no one can stand this. But they really stand. They say we will come out. And they put extra efforts and they come out. So, such kind of people's approach is like this, that the sorrow is not a legitimate thing. That's one thing. Now, from the same, that practical person's or pragmatic person's point of view, sorrow is not going to help us, but it does not help the dead person also, because if I am dead and gone, well, I have nothing to do what the other people, my relatives, are doing after he lives. And suppose if I am dying, that's a very, very beautiful thing. The dead has gone and therefore you should not grieve, that's another thing. But if I am dying, whether I should be sorrowful or not, then they say there is an inbuilt mechanism in the body for survival. Love for survival pervades even to the heart and lungs and kidneys and all, because they are working as a conscious entity right now. And therefore, since they work as a conscious entity, then the love for survival happens to be in even all the limbs, so-called vital organs. And when the person, definitely, and they themselves keep trying to keep the person alive. Really, body's mechanism is wonderful. But if person, the limbs wants to make him survive, but the person loses, suppose, a hope. He gives up the will of living. I mean, he wants to depart. Then the heart will say, why should I try harder. Let me also give it up. Kidneys also want to give it up. Everyone wants to give it up. I recently saw in India, our president, Indian president, had given awards to the women. There was a Women's Day before some time. So he gave some particular awards to selected women in the India. One of the winner of this award is from Punjab, lady. She's 103 years old, and she has broken many world records. And at the age of 93, she started learning athletics. My God! And when she came to the stage for receiving the award from President, she jumped like that and came, really. And even the President and the ministers who were there, all were in, surprise. She is considered as a surprise in the entire Punjab. Because at the age of 103, how can you break records? And the way she walks and all that with so much agility. And even then President, after giving her this one award, he requested him to go away from the stage with all this. And she did. She jumped like this and went away. Because there is a will to live. If there is a will to live, the vital organs also surrender to that. And definitely persons, I have seen several people recently, very recently, today itself I got news from Ahmedabad. But anyway, when the husband and wife, when both are there and when one leaves, if they have a good bond, the other person lives within a year, within 6 months, within 3 months. There is another example also. Some people before retirement, they are so active and busy and doing even all benevolent actions and whatnot. And after retirement, somehow a vacuum arises. And then they could not sustain that. So after retirement, people just get some diseases within no time and they pass away. So all this is, if a person is dying and he is crying, means he wants to live and he feels that I am dying, then at least he should not cry. If he cries, the limbs inside definitely sense it and they feel that this person has given up the hope of living. And so if a person is dying, he should not be sorrowful. At least he should have that will, well, I want to live. If you cry and be sorrowful, means you have given up the hope now that you will survive, etc. So that is the second. The first thing we have seen is the person who has died and gone. For that, we should not have a sorrow. Person who is dying, for them also we shouldn't have a sorrow. If I am dying, let's say, then I should not be sorrowful. That's the second case. And Pujya Swamiji narrated the story of the three people, three men. All the three men in doctor's opinions were dying of terminal diseases. And then doctor therefore, asked each of them what is their, what they want. And then the first man turned asked for a priest so that, he could make his confession, etc. And that was arranged. And the second man wanted to see his family. And the doctor arranged that also. Because the person is terminally ill, he may go, and so therefore that was also arranged. When the third man was asked, was under the almost deathbed, terminal disease, what he wanted, he replied, I want another doctor. Yeah, that shows the will, right? He has hope that his heart can try harder, his kidneys can try harder, his stomach can try harder. That is the thing. So he says, I want another doctor. He wants to live. So that's a thing. That's a spirit. Anyway, so rather than being sad and giving up, so instead you can have a will into. That's how in Ishavasya Upanishad it is told that one should jiji vishet shatagum samaha, one should have desire to live 100 years. One should have a desire to live 100 years. Jiji vishet means jivitum ichet. You should have a desire. Jiji visha means you have a desire to live. And how long? Shatam. Shatam means 100. So the first verse itself, I think, in the first verse, Ishavasya midagum sarvam yat kinchit jagatyam jagat tena tektena bhunjitaha magrada kasya siddharam. Okay, it comes in the second verse. So very first thing who comes to the Vedanta and he has to study first Upanishad is the Ishavasya Upanishad, and the very second mantra says, may you desire to live 100 years. That's how always in India, the elderly people, the Mahatmas always give a blessing. May you live 100 years. Swamiji, I don't want to live. That's a different thing. I don't want to live. But then generally, our elderly, like parents and other, grandfathers and maybe great-grandfather, or it may be there, then all give this kind of thing. So, may you live 100 years. Anyway, so these two cases, the person who has gone, for that there should not be a sorrow. A person who is like, I am dying, etc., then I should not be sorrowful. And now the third case. Suppose someone is dying and I become sorrowful, seeing him that he is leaving me, etc. What about that? Suppose someone is seriously ill and when you are at home, you are not having that much sorrow. But when you go to the hospital and see him, and you get an imagination that doctor has told perhaps she may survive. It's like that he is outside the room. He has called you and told she may survive. You have asked what is the condition. And the doctor says, well, keep a hope. But he or she is so seriously ill that may survive, may not survive. And then you go in and meet the person and you start crying. And well, that would, doctors what they generally do is, to the patient say, they will always say, there is nothing to worry. There is not much seriousness, nothing to worry. You will be cured. Don't worry at all. But when the person cries, that person who is on the deathbed senses it, and he also gives up the hope. That person also gives up the hope of life. And therefore, instead, so when you go to meet a person like that, you should give him a strength, at least, because he's ill and he requires a strength. And instead you start crying, so he loses the strength, whatever he has also. So we cannot afford to be sad. So I am dying, I cannot afford to be sad. If somebody is dying, you cannot be afford to be sad. And one is dead, for that also sorrow is illegitimate. This is how it is. So generally you have to boost the person's moral. And there are people who do. Don't worry. In a few days you have to be in hospital. Then you will be in the home. Nothing to worry. Doctor told me. Even telling lie also is not wrong at this place. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, hitam bruyat, Manusmriti says. Satyam api apriyam na bruyat. Satyam, you should tell truth. Doctor has already told you outside the room that let's keep the fingers crossed. What do you say? Keeps the fingers crossed. Yeah, keeps the fingers crossed. But I feel that the case is beyond, out of my control. I'm sorry. He says like that. And so you know the truth now. And you come in. And you while crying, he asks, why are you crying? Because doctor has told something else to the person, to the dead patient. And this person starts crying. So he gets doubt. He immediately gets a doubt. And so he asks, what is the matter? He says, doctor has told me that perhaps you may not survive. So satyam, it is satyam, but apriyam. Apriyam, you should not speak this kind of thing. That's how very beautifully told in Manusmriti, satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat. Satyam api, even though if it is a truth, apriyam na bruyat. If it is not, if it is be hurtful to the person, please don't. Because whatever strength he has, whatever a little will also is there to live, will also go away. Anyway, so crying does not alter the fact, for the dead one, for the dying one, and a dying one also doesn't require crying. In fact, he may go early, in fact. So you yourself are dying, so crying becomes useless. If somebody is dying, crying becomes useless, sorrow is useless. And then why the sorrow? The question is why then this sorrow is there? So sorrow still takes place because of confusion. Because there is no legitimate reason you can find practically. Let's not go to self and non-self and the nature of self and all that. Let's not go to that. Pragmatically also there is no legitimate sorrow. And if you definitely cross the boundary and comes to Vedanta, well, there is no reason at all to be sorrowful. No reason at all. Now, but Swamiji, forget about the death. But there are other situations. If death itself is not a cause of a sorrow, well, other situations are, I have told about that world championship. So other situations are very simple. Yeah, losing teeth and this and that. Okay, it jayega. Swamiji, you have lost hair. Okay, it will. But you should do something, Swamiji. You apply this oil and that oil and something. What the thing is always, one thing is there that what is subject to death will die, whatever you do. Your sorrow will not improve the situation. And what is not subject to death will not die. Better you know it. Better you know it. What is not subject to death will not die. And you are grieving for something which doesn't die. That's how it is not legitimate. Which is not a subject to death and still you are grieving for. Well, that's a confusion. Atma is not subject to death. We are so going to see. Atma is not subject to that, and still you grieve that the Atma is going to die, it's going to be destroyed. I may be the killer of them, etc., and then they will be destroyed, Bhishma, Drona, etc. Thinking of that itself, he becomes sorrowful. Well, whatever you have a sorrow, no change is going to occur to the nature of this, because being a nature, if it is not going to die, whatever you do, it will not die, right? And what is subject to death? Whatever you do. You balance. In America, I see the people, the balance in so many ways. They have 20 tablets every day to eat, in which this copper comes from this, and iron comes from this, and B12 comes from this, and B6 comes from this, B2 comes from this, and that's okay. But then exercise is very important. Runs for 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles. Crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. One doctor in New York, I think Puja Swamiji's student or somebody, he runs in the streets of New York so much, miles and miles. Puja Swamiji used to give example. That's how I know, because I have not met. I have come for the first time. But Puja Swamiji used to give example of the doctor in New York. Runs and runs. And with all the exercises, all the tablets, person goes faster than the person who is just eating all the oily things and says eating. All oily stuff he eats. He eats even everything, masala, everything. And in India also we have, and here also we may be having. Because the cause of the death is the prarabdha. So, well, you can have a quality life by all this, definitely. But death is something which is not just dependent upon the amount of exercise or a quality of food or etc. It depends upon something else. And you see now in the situation, I don't want to talk, but you can think that, somebody acquired the disease, somebody doesn't acquire the disease, even though he might have come in the contact and went, and he himself may not be knowing that he has come in contact. He might have come in contact and got washed away. We just don't know. And therefore the cause of death is something prarabdha. Prarabdha means karma, etc., which is going to come in Tattvabodha. That is, the body has come due to prarabdha, because of my own past karmas. So when it is over, it will go. Whatever may be the healthy body may be. And apart from it, healthy, unhealthy, it will go. It is bound to die. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Jatasya hi dhruvaha mrityuhu. Jataha means one who is born. Dhruvam means certainly. Mrityuhu. One who is born is going to the death. Dhruvam means definitely. Means that is his nature. So what is subject to death will die. What is not subject to death will not die. Better know it. Don't have a confusion. If you have a confusion that the death of something which is really going to die, you put it on the something which is really not going to die, and then you grieve for. Well, then the sorrow is not legitimate. Better do this discriminative inquiry. And therefore, this is, and so grief is never legitimate, we can say, either from the practical person's point of view or else. The person who doesn't study Vedanta, there is another one also, who doesn't study Vedanta, also not interested also, he also can remain free from the sorrow, really. But only advantage between that person who is practical but atheist, have no faith in the scriptures, and this person has a faith in the scriptures, and he knows for sure that the jiva which survives the body, because that has been told in the scriptures. So let's not say the Satchidananda Atma, but Jivatma is also will definitely survive the body. How can you say? Because entire Karma Kanda, the first portion of the Veda, talks about the karmas, in which they say if you do this, definitely you get punyam. And to enjoy punyam, you will get a better body, etc. So I mean, to enjoy the fruits of your action in this life, you are going to survive. You will be in the next body, definitely. Because something you do and I enjoy, well, that's not the law. I do a good action and you get the result of action. Well, that's not the case. And therefore, one who does will get the result. And the karta, the agent of action, only will get the benefit of the action also. And therefore, basically, the person has to survive. If he has done some good action, noble actions in this life, and without enjoying the result of action, suppose body falls, then he should survive to get a different body to enjoy those karmas. And therefore, that's what Veda says, and that's how new birth, etc. will be there. The new birth indicates the jiva which was in this body goes to the next body. That's birth. And then enjoys the fruits of action which he has done in this life, right? And therefore jiva, I am the jiva and I am going to survive. I survived the death of the body. Well, then why to worry? I am not going to die. Body is going to die. And therefore, if he has not studied even this Atma, Satchidananda, etc., he said, I don't care. Your Satchidananda, you keep it with yourself. I don't want. Okay, nothing to worry. Still, he also will not have a sorrow. So from practical person's point of view, from this Astika, the person who is having a little faith in the scriptures, from his standpoint of view, and from the person who is knowing the self as it is by the discrimination, removes the confusion, for this person also there is no death. Therefore, there is no cause of sorrow. There is no legitimate sorrow. And therefore, this indicates there is a possibility that our sorrow also will go in course of time, knowing the self. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.